Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this video is going to be about legislation that was passed by Congress in January pertaining to acceptable spending levels and acceptable, at least to them, deficits and all that through fiscal year 2026. But I wanted to focus on for a minute, as a segue into that, the brouhaha over kneeling for the national anthem. I think it's a distraction. I think it's ridiculous. If you don't like it, if you don't like them kneeling, quit watching the NFL. If it hurts their pocketbook, they will bend to your wishes if they think they're going to lose a lot of money. And if you suddenly are patriotic, or if you suddenly find that good because Trump's in office now and you didn't for 8 years, well, go watch the NFL. Hang out at whatever stupid bar you usually hang out and get drunk with your retard friends and watch it. Because it just amazes me how some people now are so amped up about people kneeling for the national anthem. Oh boy, so if we got everybody to stand for the national anthem suddenly again, would that erase the police state, which won't be a subject? Will that erase the fact that we're piling on debt like crazy? No. Will that erase the fact that Social Security is going to go belly up and it's broken? No. Will it erase the fact that we balanced the budget grand total of 3 times since Eisenhower took the oath of office? So it's a huge distraction. It just amazes me. People get all wound. If they spend as much time trying to get people elected for Social Security reform or get people elected, of course, a lot of the people who are all wound up about people kneeling for the national anthem a lot of them are all for all the, you got to wave the flag, and I love the flag, and I'm not going to burn it or spit on it or stand on it or whatever. A lot of those people are, well, they like a lot of war and, big U.S. power, U.S. strength, and go over there and show them who's boss. If they spend as much time trying to get people in Congress and try to win hearts and minds to get people in Congress that will balance the budget, like Ron Paul, for example, is one, Rand Paul's another. If they spend as much time on that as they do getting all wound up and pissed off about people kneeling before the national anthem, something might get done. So this national anthem crap is a huge distraction from the fact that we have wars everywhere still. We have a police state, which is still continuing. We have debt up the wazoo, which is continuing. So, like I said, there's some people that are just happy with it because it distracts from all the failures of big government. And Alan West said Donald Trump was punching down, and I don't think he went far enough when he said people should be fired. This is above, the president's above that. He shouldn't be worrying about that. Who gives? It's like when they had a strike in baseball. I remember Bill Clinton was out there talking about trying to get a deal broker. Don't worry about it. You're the president. You're not the commissioner of baseball. Who gives a damn? And Trump's out there running his mouth about it. Again, I wouldn't kneel for the national anthem, but who cares? We've got bigger fish to fry. He called Jerry Jones 4 times, for crying out loud. If he spent as much time calling people demanding that we balance the budget soon, not put it off for 10 years from now. So it's just ridiculous. And yeah, Alan West said Donald Trump was punching down with that it was a waste of time, and I think it really is. So yeah, in closing, before we get to the main event, if those people who are all wound up and burning all their NFL stuff, which go for it. I mean, I haven't watched the NFL for so long. It's a waste of time. I've heard people say, these professional athletes are overpaid. Technically, they're not, because enough people, they still buy the tickets to go to the games. They still watch the games, which means advertisers are going to flock to it. They still buy the jerseys. They still buy the garbage. They still buy the stuff. I got my Redskins jersey my Redskins sweatshirt for free because I could really care less. But I did get it for free, so I took it because it's nice and warm. So, yeah, it's a huge distraction. Donald Trump shouldn't worry about it. It just amazes me how the things that people will get amped up at that don't mean a damn thing in the grand scheme of things. Now to the main event. Okay, folks, I'm going to take another trip back in time to January. This is Boingo was still in office, but the Senate was trying to figure out the congressional budget for the United States government for fiscal year. This is a budget baseline budgeting, which I remember Ron Paul has been very critical of, because these guys will pat themselves on the back for cutting spending when all they did is cut the growth slightly. Setting forth the congressional budget for the United States government for fiscal year 2017, and setting forth the appropriate budgetary levels for fiscal years 2018 through 2026. So this is a budget, as Rand Paul said many times. Some people trying to poo-poo it. Well, why even vote on it then? But if you read through this and see what they're accepting, you should be alarmed. So here's what I wrote, and I've got all the links underneath as per usual. Do people get it? I don't think many of these polls care. Look at the legislation, another continuing resolution. Got the roll call votes that Congress recently passed. Senator Rand Paul was the lone Republican in the Senate to oppose its final passage. Note, Democrats are suddenly worried about deficits again, as Donald Trump is in the White House and Boingo is gone. Excuse me, I mean Barack Obama. Senator Rand Paul was the lone Republican to oppose its passage. He proposed an alternative which would force Washington to balance the budget, projected, of course, by fiscal year 2024, assuming the revenue projections are accurate. Most Republicans, of course, were wringing their grubby paws over Boingo's profligate spending and the Democrat Congress he had for Democrat Senate for 6 years and House for 2 years. He had them both for 2 years. Most Republicans, of course, were wringing their grubby paws over Boingo's profligate spending, but didn't bother to apparently look at the deficits they were endorsing as far as the eye can see. No, they don't give a you-know-what. Your children and grandchildren will pay for this, literally and figuratively. Vote liberty, vote libertarian. Rand Paul's alternative, which would enact a federal spending freeze, note, should we fail to enact meaningful reform to Social Security and Medicare. This will only buy us some time, but it's a start, because Social Security and Medicare are eating up an enormous portion of the budget. Senator Rand Paul's alternative immediately got a whole 14 votes. Thanks Chuck Grassley and Joni Ernst for voting for continuing the deficit parade. We wouldn't want to break that streak, would we? Items projected to be larger than national defense by fiscal year 2026. Keep in mind, bureaucrats will use OCO, Overseas Contingency Operations, as a slush fund to pump up defense spending, but avoid it being part of the Pentagon quote-unquote base budget. Congress did that for years under Barack Boingo to avoid Budget Control Act caps. So, keep in mind, military/defense spending might be larger than projected. I should also mention that other spending will also likely be larger, quite possibly, as often pay-go rules are waived because emergency, quote-unquote emergency spending is needed. Items projected to be larger, and some of these items already are larger, even with OCO included. Items projected to be larger than national defense by fiscal year 2026. Medicare, Social Security, which is already larger, and net interest payments on our debt. Means-tested entitlements, items such as food stamps, Medicaid, low-income home energy assistance, or LIHEAP, LIHEAP. Means-tested entitlements are also growing at a much faster pace since 1980 and the budget overall. Means-tested entitlements may eclipse the entire military budget plus OCO in the next decade. So that's just for those people who say, oh, if we just really cut defense spending, we'll save ourselves. No. Only a retarded person would believe that. That doesn't mean there's not anything we can cut from defense. There's plenty we can. I've got a lot of ideas. Net interest payments on our debt are set to become a huge problem. It's too bad Rand Paul is one of the few among a group of insane folks pointing this out. All Rand Paul wanted to do was freeze federal spending, and then Congress could allocate what was most important and hopefully constitutional. They would have none of it. Very few Republicans in the House voted against this travesty, and the Democrats who did only did so because Trump. Just as guys like Chuck Grassley suddenly became concerned about profligate spending when a Democrat is in the White House. Justin Amash, Thomas Massie, my two favorite members of the People's House, also voted against this deficit spending gravy train. Get a load of this. They are okay, and I'm really disappointed in Mike Lee, although he was one of only 14 that voted for Rand's alternative. Get a load of this. They are okay with spending $1 trillion more than they have in revenue by fiscal year 2026. Insane. If anyone quotes Bernie Sanders and says, "We need to raise taxes to cover this shortfall," see my "So You're Nostalgic for the 1950s" video. It debunks that talking point, among others, totally. It's irresponsible to constantly, year after year, decade after decade, to spend more than you have in fiat currency. Yet our politicians do that and don't bat an eye. Rand is right. They don't have to have a fight. They don't want to have a fight. They just want to bite votes, get it over with, and move on. It's just too tough. You wouldn't do that with your checkbook, would you? Some people do, and it's likely they're living in a ratty apartment, driving a rusted-out Prius, and they have plenty of credit card bills, but no credit cards. There will be a day of reckoning, folks. Guys like Chuck Grassley and Bernie Sanders won't be here to see it, but the effects of their legislative careers will be hurting your grandchildren long after they are gone. So I'll let the rest of that go by. Got a lot more a few more minutes to go. I'll let the rest of that go by. All the links are below, and you can look at what these people are essentially endorsing. They are endorsing sentencing your grandchildren to be paying off this national debt, because there will come a time when it will have to be paid off. And there will come a time when Social Security, see my Social Security must be reformed video, there will come a time when Social Security is going to absolutely implode. You know what's going to hit the fan. And your children and grandchildren will be the ones that will be called upon to pick up the slack. And it won't happen. But they're going to get hit hard for it. So the handwriting's on the wall. It's like Daniel saw the handwriting on the wall. I can see the handwriting on the wall. Rand Paul does too. And we have some serious things to take care of. Ignoring it and doing what we keep doing won't solve the problem, I guarantee it. Have a nice day. You've been warned. What you're seeing now is Rand Paul's speech the day he offered his substitute. Again, he was trying to freeze federal spending. They could spend on what they wanted, but they only had a certain amount. And it was projected to balance the budget by fiscal year 2024. And it's important that I'm not going to read it all off. The link's under there if you want to read the whole thing, or freeze the video while it's scrolling by. But he really laid into the Republicans, and he laid into George W. Bush. And we need more of that, because I think there's a lot of people in both parties who they will endorse. There are a lot of Democrats under Obama that totally ignored things that he did were exactly like, or even worse than George W. Bush, and vice versa. There's Republicans that are suddenly concerned about overspending when there's a Democrat in the White House, but when George W. Bush is signing bills that jack up federal spending to stratospheric heights. So nothing to see here. So that's why I like Rand Paul. That's exactly why I voted for him in the caucus. And I know Trump, there's rumblings that Trump wants to work with Democrats to abolish the national debt ceiling. Well, if you want them to put the gas pedal to the floor and not even have to have a fight when the debt ceiling is almost ready to reach its apex, boy, that's a green light to really spend. And if Donald Trump does go sign legislation to do that, he wouldn't do that with one of his businesses. So that is an insane idea. That is one of the worst ideas. That's I will not vote for you again idea, even though I didn't vote for him. I voted for Gary Johnson. But and I'm not going to vote for him when he runs for re-election. I guarantee it. And this is one of the reasons why to abolish the national debt ceiling would be that's damn near criminal in my opinion, almost. So he really laid into the Republicans. We need more of that. Like I said, you've been warned. This is some sobering news. It's almost done. So I urge you to go read that for yourself. His speech is worth a read or worth a listen if you want to listen to it too. Have a nice day, and don't thank me now.